For fun's sake. For fun's sake, it's 7:30. We're late. Hi guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. So we have got to get this guy off of the stand. So we're at the end of April 17th, part 2. Then there's a part 3. And there's 2 parts to April 18th. April 18th is the last day we see Fung. Unless the defense calls him back. I don't think they do. I'm pretty sure they don't. So I know. That's why I got it. That's why I got it. Because he was sitting in the back row. Yeah. I would like to see sanctions against Sheck before these 2 days are over. I would like Fung to be there to witness it. But it's just not going to happen. Can't change history. History is history. And always remember to keep history in the past. Do not answer those text messages ever. Ever. Here we go.
Collecting stains, such as in the Bronco, to take representative samples and not collect everything.
That is the way I was trained to do my crime scene analysis or investigations. We collect the best stains that we feel are appropriate for analysis, and it would be almost impossible to collect every stain and not bog down the entire system.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to refer back to our Bronco board, if we may, and ask the witness some questions about that. Now, sir.
All right, this is People's Exhibit. Which? Just 26.
It's 172.
Proceed, Mr. Chairman.
It's 172. And I'd like to mark a vehicle search checklist.
All right, that'll be People's 200.
For, actually, it's entitled Vehicle Search Notes.
Vehicle search notes. How many pages, Mr. Goldberg?
This is 6 pages.
6 pages. Thank you. Mr. Sheck, you're familiar with that? All right, without the court reporter. Mr. Goldberg.
And for a second, we finally saw that there was blood inside the Bronco. This is the first time we have heard there was blood found at all of those places inside the Bronco. How is that the first time we've heard that? How? Look at all these little markers. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom.
All right, thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Sir, directing your attention to the exhibit that we put up here.
All right, this is People's Exhibit. What, Mr. Goldberg?
This is People's 172.
All right.
For identification. Sir, directing your attention to the photograph that has the call out lines 31 and 30 on it.
Yeah.
Does that depict the way that the console looked when you saw it?
Yes.
On the 14th?
Yes, it does.
And was it possible for you to see the area where stain 305 is located when you saw it on the 14th?
I don't recall if I was able to see that area or not that day.
is the way that the console is situated such that it would be difficult for you to see that stain?
Yes.
Why is that?
The stain is in a lower position. It's towards the back on a corner.
Sorry. Okay, now, do the various stains that are depicted on this exhibit represent every single stain that was in the Bronco that you saw on the 14th?
No.
These are just a selected portion of the stains.
Yes.
Thank you. Maybe we could just move the board down so that the jurors could look at the photo that has 31 and 30, and also the photo that has 305 in it.
Yes. All right, Mr. Fairlow, after you finish with that, would you briefly exhibit it to our audience? Mr. Goldberg? All right, thank you, counsel. Mr. Goldberg? Thank you, Mr. Fairlow.
And the stains that you looked at for Ms. Clark in July, were those visible from the exterior?
One I remember was visible from the exterior. Some of the others that we saw today were not.
Okay, but at least one was.
Yes.
Now, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about trace evidence or transfer evidence.
Was there any signs that someone broke into the car? Because Furman would had to have broken into the car.
Can you start by telling us what transfer evidence is?
Transfer evidence is evidence that is exchanged between one surface to another when they come in contact with one another. One will leave, in theory anyway, trace evidence on the other, and the other will leave the trace evidence on the one.
Now, can transfer evidence occur without direct contact,
It can occur, but it's rare,
generally speaking?
generally speaking.
Now, suppose hypothetically that the coroner's, back at the Bundy crime scene, the coroner's white sheet was placed down over the blanket that had been on Nicole. And then on top of that, there was a plastic sheet that was put down, and that occurred before Ron Goldman was put on the plastic sheet. Would you expect, given that hypothetical, there to be any transfer evidence from the blanket to Ron Goldman?
No,
And is that because they weren't in direct contact?
that's correct.
Now, if hypothetically there were saliva from the defendant that had been dried on the white blanket, could that saliva somehow float down the entire crime scene and hit the red gate and turn red?
No,
Would you expect that saliva or any biological material would contaminate the stains that you and Ms. Mazzola collected along the trail?
given your hypothetical, no.
And is there any scientific explanation as to how it conceivably could contaminate the trail stains?
Also speculation.
But not the substrate controls or the areas from which the substrate controls were taken.
No foundation beyond this witness's expertise.
Sir, what is the purpose of the substrate controls again?
Substrate control is mainly used to detect if there is some form of contamination present on the substrate. It's also used.
Did they just complain because this witness wouldn't know the answer to that question? Is that what they just did? Is that what the defense team just actually freaking did?
Used to test or detect whether our instruments and materials we're using to collect the samples are clean and not contaminated.
And in the case of the items along the trail, did you or Ms. Mazzola take the substrate controls from an area that was immediately next to the stain itself?
Yes,
Now, when you say that one thing that substrate controls can help you out with is looking for contamination, what do you mean by contamination?
contamination in that regard would be something present that would affect the conclusions of an analysis.
In other words, in the case of biological evidence, some other biological material.
Yes,
Now, of the 500 or so crime scenes that you've processed over your career or investigated over your career, approximately what percentage would you say were done with criminalist ones?
maybe 20%.
Have you found there to be any problem with the LAPD using criminalist ones at crime scenes?
No,
Now, in the area of crime scene processing, are the ideals as contained in the forensic texts and elsewhere ever met?
it's almost impossible to do a perfect crime scene.
And in coming to that conclusion, did you also consider the views of Dr. DeForest, Ganslin, and Lee in their book, Forensic Science and Introduction to Criminalistics?
Yes,
Is there any single right way to process a crime scene or do something such as collecting stains?
there are basic principles that one follows, but there's no one correct way to process a crime scene.
And did you also consider their text, Forensic Science and Introduction to Criminalistics, in rendering that opinion?
Yes,
Counsel, directing your attention to page 415, and I'd like to approach the witness if I might, just to show him what I'm trying to look at.
You may. Mr. Scheck, do you have the password?
And sir, did they write in their book that there are no hard and fast rules for successful, excuse me, let me start one sentence earlier. Throughout this book, we have attempted to point out that every crime scene is unique and that there is no single right way to process the crime scenes. Each scene must be evaluated individually. There are no hard and fast rules for successful crime scene processing. Did you consider that?
yes,
And did you also consider their statement, of course, perfection in this or any other human endeavor is never achieved. It is probable that no crime scene has ever been processed in such a way that hindsight would not allow someone else to criticize the work at a later date. Did you consider that?
yes,
Do you agree with that?
yes, I do.
Now, with respect to the work that you and criminalist Mazzola performed at Rockingham, did you or did she do anything in your presence that could cause the defendant's blood to appear on the items of evidence that you collected on the trail that went from the Bronco to the door or back?
Remember that question.
This is compound.
Did you do anything, sir, or criminalist Mazzola in your presence do anything that could cause the defendant's blood to be on that trail?
Also, because it's calling for this witness's conclusions of that evidence.
Right, that's still
which there's no
compound.
foundation.
I'll break it down. Did you do anything?
No,
Did criminalist Mazzola do anything in your
No,
presence?
Objection.
Overruled.
To do anything about
Overruled.
what? Reference to the
Overruled.
question you sustained.
Overruled.
objection?
Did criminalist Mazzola do anything in your presence that could cause the defendant's blood to show up on that trail?
In your presence.
I think I said that.
Yes.
no,
And sir, did you do anything that could have caused the defendant's blood to show up in the Bronco?
no,
Did you do anything which could have caused Nicole Simpson's blood to show up in the Bronco
no,
or Ron Goldman's?
no,
Did criminalist Mazzola do anything which could have caused the defendant's blood to show up in the Bronco in your presence
no,
or Nicole Simpson's?
No.
Or Ron Goldman's?
No.
Did you do anything, sir, at the Bundy crime scene that could have caused the defendant's blood to show up along the trail and on the rear gate?
no,
Or criminalist Mazzola in your presence?
No.
And sir, did you do anything, or did you do anything that could have caused the defendant's hair and a fiber from the Bronco to show up on the knit cap?
No.
Did criminalist Mazzola do anything to cause that in your presence?
Move to strike all of this. Last two questions. There's
On what basis?
no foundation for this witness as to any of this.
Sidebar.
We finally heard some evidence. So, but was there blood? So OJ's hair was on the cap.
Well,
Was
let's
there
take a
blood?
brief break to switch gears.
We don't know.
All right.
We
Ladies
haven't
and
heard
gentlemen, I'm
yet.
just going to take a brief break because we're going to switch.
Shut up, So we hear that there's Ron and Nicole's blood in the Bronco and OJ's blood in the Bronco.
Switch back into recross examination. Just going to take a brief break for the lawyers so they can organize their exhibits and we get started again. So let me ask you to step back in the jury room. We should be starting about another 5 or 10 minutes. All
So
right.
that means
All right,
30
fine,
to
you can step down.
40,000 minutes.
Interpretation may not be there in light of the
150,000.
questions that the
Wait.
counsels indicated he was.
Why is he talking? He's not allowed to talk right now. Sit down. I hope Marcia gets to talk then. I hope Dearden does not talk.
Not considering any test results, but I think that a fair reading of those questions would be that he did consider test results when he talks about Ron Goldman's blood in the Bronco and talks about Ron Simpson's blood in the Bronco. That's an unfair inference. It assumes facts not in evidence, in addition to everything else. It seems to me that a limiting instruction might be in order if that was in the nature of like a hypothetical question. When the court proposed what we think would be an appropriate question, counsel indicated he had no further questions. And so he should either ask the questions that you, as you phrase it, or they should be stricken, or the jury should be given some limiting instruction with regard to those last series of questions, it seems to me, Your Honor.
Such as.
Well, I think that, may I have just a second?
Maybe
Would you guys
30 thoughts around it before the court considers an admission?
Well, give me just a second. I think that to conclude, I think there's clearly an implication that this witness has knowledge of test results, which counsel says he wasn't including in his question. I think unless the court does something to clear that up, it would be very unfair for the defendant in that regard. And so I think that the question you proposed at the end of the sidebar, that did he do anything to contaminate these samples? Everybody could object to that question, but that's not the question he asked. And so either ask that question.
But wasn't that the import of that whole line of questions?
No, I don't think so. No, because he asked about samples, Your Honor. He asked about results. The import was he talked about results that this jury could absolutely infer because he's talking about results, and that's the part that's unfair. So I would ask the court to either figure a way to limit it or strike that and let counsel ask the appropriate questions, or strike the whole line of questions. I mean, I think that obviously that's why we approached the sidebar to address that. And Your Honor specified how you thought the question should be asked. Then you saw fit not to ask that question because primarily he wanted to ask his questions. The reason he wanted to ask his questions is because it leads a reasonable juror to that conclusion, which is totally unfair and unfounded. So we'd ask the court to correct that misperception.
People.
Okay.
Your Honor, all Mr. Goldberg did was address this witness with respect to what he did, if anything. And that's talking about his actions and his handling of the crime scene, which we know is hotly contested.
Mazzola in his presence.
Or Ms. Mazzola in his presence, which is an appropriate question based on what he observed. But I would remind the court, well, first of all, did he do anything? That part of the question simply directs the witness's attention to his actions, whether he appropriately handled the crime scene to avoid contamination and to keep everything maintain the integrity of the evidence. There's no problem with that. And then further, with respect to cause this kind of result is simply a hypothetical. But I would also remind the court that the defense went extensively into hypotheticals concerning how Bronco fibers could have been deposited on the cap and how the defendant's hair could have been deposited on the cap or on Ron Goldman and how they could have been transferred as a result of this blanket that somehow as bizarre as this theory seems, and I can't believe any reasonable juror will ever buy it. Nevertheless, the defense has attempted to sell to this jury through their hypotheticals that this blanket was waved around the scene like a matador would in an arena, and that somehow particles flew off of that blanket and magically landed one on Ron Goldman and another on the cap. And I mean, kind of crazy stuff, but that's what they've been trying to do. And they've been doing it repeatedly, specifically with respect to the defendant's hair could have been on the blanket, the Bronco fibers could have been on the blanket, and they could have wound up here and they could have wound up there because of this, that, and the other. So the defense has done that very thing. Now, when we come back and in the most...
So how can they say it's facts not in evidence when they ask the exact same questions? Could this Could it have been on the cab? Could it have been in the Bronco? If they've already asked these questions, which I missed, I don't remember them asking these questions. But maybe it was when I was driving my daughter. But if they have already asked it, though, they can't. Judge Ito, come on, you can't. You just can't.
Mild and muted form, come back with a hypothetical to concerning this witness's handling of the crime scene collection procedures used. They're screaming bloody murder, and it's not appropriate. They don't have the right to. Bad choice of words. That's exactly what we have here. As a matter of fact, though, what Mr. Goldberg asked of the witness is, did you do anything? What have you done in terms of this crime scene? And it goes to the very heart of the matter. The defense is claiming that all of this contamination, quote unquote, occurred as a result of what Mr. Fung did or didn't do. He's addressing the matter head on. I did nothing to cause the contamination. And by way of hypothetical, by way of example, to cause this blood to be here or some blood to be there. I think that we are really, after the defense has laid out these results in their own hypotheticals, for them to complain that we have answered the hypotheticals that they have raised is absurd. Cat's out of the bag, so to speak, if you will. And these results are going to come in eventually, not so eventually, actually, with the forthcoming witnesses. It's going to happen. You know why? I don't even know why we're arguing about this right now, because the thrust of the question is what he did and how he collected the evidence at the crime scene. There's nothing improper in the questioning, and there's no misleading evidence in front of misleading information in it. You know, counsel started it, and we've answered it. This seems to happen repeatedly. You know, the defense opens the door and sticks their foot through, and then they get upset. You know, when we step on their toes and say, "Hey, we have a response." We have a response. They have tried to, by way of hypothetical, mislead the jury and confuse them and give them these wild and outlandish theories as to how evidence came to be where it is, and we're debunking it. And that's what we have to do. That's our job. And now they're complaining about it, but there's nothing improper in the manner of questioning that was done. I don't even understand what the objection is.
I'd like to explain it.
Mr. Cocker's making noises behind me, Your Honor.
All right, I'd like to explain it for you, Your Honor. He started talking about debunking theories, and it wasn't us, Your Honor, who were talking about who sees mystery shadows when gloves appear on white sheets. It's not us who's misleading anybody. Let me just get to the issue here. The issue is, if this was an appropriate hypothetical, then perhaps we wouldn't be objecting. What they did was they went too far, Your Honor. They didn't just ask about contamination, which Mr. Scheck did a masterful job in talking about contamination. They don't like the fact the scene was all contaminated, or could have been, or reasonable people could infer that. So if they wanted to ask Mr. Fung, Your Honor, whether or not he did anything that would cause a contamination, that's appropriate. That's what you told him. But they went further. He asked questions that were like non sequiturs about saliva that would end up going from one place to the other, which we didn't bother objecting because it seemed so bizarre. We didn't object to that.
Did you see the reaction from the jury?
Yeah, they didn't know what he was talking about either. And I didn't, so we didn't object to that. But when he talked specifically about hair of the defendants, which they're not going to have, from that standpoint, cross-examination does not allow them to ask improper questions at the end and try to end the big flourish. And that's what we saw here. And when you told him how to ask the question, he went back to his seat and chose to ask, I have no further questions, because he didn't want to ask it the right way. So all we're trying to do is let's take the record clean. Let's make it fair, and not be prejudicial to this defendant, even though the jurors probably weren't listening by this point. But I can't assume that. I've got to get the record the way it should be, Your Honor. And that's why we're very serious about this, and ask you to clean that record up.
All right, thank you, counsel.
Thank you.
Mr. Scheck, how much time do you need to get geared up and get your videotapes ready to roll? 10 minutes?
It's the only reason I said that is I'm sure I won't finish this afternoon.
Oh, I know you won't finish this afternoon, but let's assume that you got 10 minutes to get your tapes together.
Yeah, I have 10 minutes to go to 4:30 is no problem.
Okay, all right. No, we're going to take about 10 minutes so I can get rid of a few things, and then we'll start at 4:40 or so. And some of the jurors in our lineup have doctor's appointments, so we may only get to 3 of them today. Okay. No, you're taking away from Mr. Scheck's time to prepare.
No, it's about the presence of the defendant at the hearing. At the appropriate time. He asked about a case, and I wanted to share something.
All right, well, share it with me when we take our 10-minute break.
Fine.
All right, thank you.
No ex parte. No ex parte.
Mr. Darden, good afternoon, sir. Are you here for some reason? Standing?
To watch the trial, Your Honor.
All right.
But beyond that, if I may, so that I might clarify a point on the record the other day, Friday, I indicated to the court that we had recovered certain documents from Mr. Mark Elliott, and that we had recovered those documents not by SDT. In fact, they were recovered by SDT in lieu of our execution or obtainment of a search warrant. I would like to turn over to the defense today a contract with St. Martin's Press. It involved Mr. Elliott and Cato Kalin, as well as a transcript of an interview Mark Elliott had with Cato Kalin, in which apparently served as a book proposal for Mr. Kalin. Thank you.
All right, record will reflect that you're handing that. Why don't you give it to Mr. Douglas? Darden, you indicated that the copies of the, oh, was it 20 tapes of interviews with Mr. Kalin that you turned over to the court?
Yeah, the court has 15 or 16
15
audio
or
cassettes.
16? You indicated that those can be turned over to the defense for their copying, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Scheck, are we ready? All right, let's have the jurors, please. All right, Mr. Scheck, you may begin your recross examination.
On redirect examination, Mr. Fung, do you recall that it began with a number of questions about conspiracies?
Overruled.
You recall that?
I don't know where it was, but yes,
Do you recall questions to the effect, are you in a conspiracy with Detective Lang, Michelle Kessler, her husband, whoever that might be, or Detective Furman against
Yo,
this
yo,
man?
yo, yo,
Remember
wait,
that?
wait. Does that mean, that does mean, that means that Marsha won. Marsha won that because the judge didn't give them any limiting instructions.
Overruled.
Do you remember being asked if you were in a conspiracy with Ms. Mazzola to cover up receiving some item with your bare hand?
something to that effect.
Do you remember being asked if you were in a conspiracy to allow Detective Lang to get into the evidence processing room and somehow get DNA on swatches?
Remember a question, something to that effect also.
And you answered all those questions, no.
That's correct.
Now, let me ask you, have you ever heard the term cover-up?
Yes.
What does that mean to you, sir?
When somebody does something wrong and cover their tracks, you try to show that they didn't.
Oh, I wish I could see the jury. I wish I could see the jury to see if their faces are contorted in rage right now.
Do anything wrong.
Or they try to protect them from being discovered?
Yes.
And that one, have you tried, sir, to cover up mistakes by yourself or others that occurred during this investigation?
I have made corrections through proper channels.
Correct.
But I have not tried to cover up any mistakes.
In your testimony, sir, in the way you answered questions, have you ever tried to cover up mistakes that were made by yourself or others?
No.
Have you tried in your testimony to cover up misconduct by anyone?
No.
Mr. Fung, in the course of you were asked a number of questions about the way you normally testify.
Yes.
All right. Now, when you testify, sir, do you revise your recollections of events in order to make your testimony come out in a way that you think favors the position of the prosecution?
No.
At any time, sir, have you claimed not to remember some event one way or the other because being vague in your recollection would help cover up mistakes or misconduct?
Not on purpose, no.
Not on purpose?
No, I have not.
Now, Mr. Fung, haven't you repeatedly been changing your testimony about what you told this jury you independently remembered based on fear of being caught in inconsistencies or lies by videotapes?
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Have you repeatedly changed your testimony about what you independently remember based on looking at videotapes?
Sustained. Stay.
Have you ever changed your testimony about what you said happened because you saw a videotape of those same events?
Overruled.
I have looked at videotapes and my memory has been refreshed during the course of my testimony.
Well, haven't you just offered some testimony this afternoon where you told us that you had no independent recollection of events, but you could only piece together and reconstruct things based on what you saw in a video and still photos?
Overruled.
I was able to reconstruct events by looking at videos.
Right. Events that you have no independent memory of whatsoever.
That's fake.
Now, before you came in here and testified at trial on direct examination, you had seen a video of Andrea Mazzola picking up the glove and the hat at Bundy and putting them in a paper bag?
Yes,
And so when you came here and testified at trial, you did not testify that you had seen, that you yourself had collected the hat and collected the glove and put it in a paper bag.
Sustain, rephrase the question.
Did you testify at this trial that you had picked up the hat at Bundy and the glove at Bundy and put those in a paper bag for later processing?
I don't
You
recall
had-
that I said that during this trial. No,
You didn't say that during this trial, right?
I don't think so.
No, on direct examination, you said Ms. Mazzola had done that.
Is that a
I-
question?
Yes. Right?
I don't remember everything I said, but that's what happened, yes.
But in the grand jury, sir, and I'm now at page 337 to 338, starting at line 8.
All right, hold on. Three 37. At what line?
Actually, I'll start on line 23 to save time. Question. In photographs A, B, and C, do they actually depict the glove in the location and condition you found it? Answer, yes. Question. What did you do with respect to that glove? Answer, initially I measured to see, to locate where it was found, documented that location, and then placed it in a paper bag for later processing. You asked those questions, did you give those answers?
Yes, I,
Oh, the answer was yes.
Now, you testified, sir, that when you went into the grand jury, that you did not have an opportunity to have extensive conversations with Ms. Clark about your testimony.
yes,
Overruled.
Did you have any conversations with Ms. Clark about your testimony before you went into the grand jury?
only brief conversation
And you were testifying on June 22nd,
or thereabouts.
and that was only 9 days after this collection that occurred at Bundy.
Yes,
And the events certainly, sir, were fresher in your mind on June 22nd than they have been when you've been testifying at this trial.
yes,
And because you hadn't spoken with Ms. Clark before you went into the grand jury and you were going to be asked questions, you wanted to make sure that your testimony was as accurate as possible about what you could remember.
Overruled.
when I testified at the grand jury, I wasn't trying to mislead anybody, and I was trying to tell the truth.
Trying to be accurate.
Yes,
And your memory was fresher than it is here today.
yes,
But you told us on redirect examination that you have this habit of saying, I did something when testifying, even if you didn't do it.
when I am working in a team and I am the supervisor of that team and I'm calling the shots, and I tend to use I when asked questions of procedure.
Well, wait a second. I thought that one explanation you gave for why you said I in the grand jury was this concept in working as a team, correct?
Yes,
Well, didn't Mr. Goldman ask you other questions about testimony at this trial about your habit of saying I did something when in fact you didn't do it, but someone else did?
Overruled.
he did ask questions to those effect.
Is that a habit that you have all the time, sir, that when somebody asks, what did you do? You tend to say, I did it, even if you didn't do it.
I have gone over the grand jury testimony and other testimony in this trial, and I have found that that's what I tend to do.
When you testified at the grand jury, I'm now at page 379, line 8. Were you asked these?
Hold on. Goldberg?
I went to get cereal. Missed something?
No, line starting at line 5. Sure.
Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Question. Were the blood drops next to those shoe prints?
I'm going to object to this. We've already gone over this twice. It's asked and answered.
Overruled.
Were the blood drops next to those shoe prints? Answer, yes, they were. Question. Did you attempt to retrieve and preserve the blood found in those blood drops? Answer, yes, I did. Question. What did you do? Answer, I transferred the blood drops onto cloth squares or cloth swatches. What I did was wet the cloth swatches with distilled water and then applied them to the stain, the red stains, which are later determined to be blood, and they were transferred in that method. Were you asked those questions? Did you give those answers?
Overruled.
Yes.
Now, you weren't asked anything there about documenting and measuring drops, were you?
No.
You weren't asked anything about mental processes, were you?
The collection phase or the collection process includes those parts.
Yes, but the question you were asked is, what did you do, right?
Yes.
And the answer that you gave talked about what you did in terms of putting cloth swatches on the ground and putting water on them and taking up blood, right?
It's part of the answer. Yes.
Well, wasn't that the entirety of the answer? When you were asked, what did you do? And you talked about transferring the blood drops onto cloth squares. You were describing your physical actions.
Sustained.
You were describing in your answer your actions 9 days previously.
In that answer, I was describing the procedure for which the blood was collected.
You weren't asked the procedure. You were asked, what did you do, correct?
Sustained. Argumentative.
Were you asked, what did you do?
Overruled.
Yes,
You were not asked, what was the procedure generally?
but that was my interpretation.
Well, on other occasions, in the grand jury and at the preliminary hearing, didn't Ms. Clark ask you questions about what general procedures were?
Overruled.
She may have.
But this question was, what did you do, right?
That's what that question was.
And it's your testimony, sir, that in answering those questions about the blood drops found at Bundy, it never occurred to you at all that it would sound better to testify that you did it and not Andrea Mazzola.
That did not occur to me.
It was just this habit of answering questions where you say, I did something, even if you didn't do it. Just that bad habit.
Sustained. Rephrase the question. But we've about exhausted this area.
Well, just do one more. Quick one.
One quick one.
One quick one. Now, with respect to the red stain on the Bronco, I'm at the grand jury page 390, line 6. Question. How did you recover them?
Certainly. Hold on.
Line 6. This question. Sure. Do you have it in front of you, Mr. Fung, by chance, your grand jury testimony?
No, I do not.
One quick question, my ass.
Just that question and answer. Mhm. Yeah.
Sanctions. He has different discovery than they do.
Council went into this. I think it's the third time.
One last question.
And this question was in reference to the red stain on the Bronco and all the drops at Rockingham. Question. Just read the few lines before that.
So he's allowed to ask about the stains in the Bronco?
Proceed.
Question. How did you recover them? Answer. I recovered them in the same manner described before, where I would wet a wet cloth swatch or several cloth swatches if needed, apply it to the red stain, and then let the stain transfer onto the cloth swatch. Were you asked those questions and did you give those answers?
Yes.
And the fact is, sir, that the only stains where you took a cloth swatch and put them onto the ground were numbers 55 and 56, 2 footprints at Bundy.
No, I did do actual swatching with some other stains
But
along the trail.
you're now referring to, you actually showed Ms. Mazzola a better technique as she was swatching and did one or two yourself?
No, there were times when I would take the tweezers, go through the substrate control collection, go through the swatching of the red stains with the cloth square and putting it in a plastic bag. There were times when I did that.
Didn't you tell us previously, sir, that it was Ms. Mazzola that did the swatching of those stains at Bundy? Now, you were asked on redirect
No,
examination
What
that,
he said was she did most of them. Most of them.
that the preliminary hearing, you actually mentioned Ms. Mazzola.
Yes,
And you were asked questions about how you were not in any way reluctant to reveal what her role was in the collection of evidence when you testified at the preliminary hearing.
I did reveal her that she was part of the search team, yes.
Well, but you were in no way reluctant to reveal how much of the collection and swatching she actually did.
No, I was not.
And Mr. Goldberg read you part of this. I'd like to read the rest of it from the preliminary hearing.
Council's comments, that's to be stricken.
I'd like to read you a segment
Wait a
from,
minute, wait a minute. All right, proceed.
preliminary hearing, July 7th at page 39, starting at line 17. Now redirect you 17 through the next page to 21. Question: how do you collect blood stains from a crime scene? Answer: generally, stains are transferred onto a swatch by first wetting the swatch with distilled water, applying it to the stain so the blood is absorbed onto the swatch, and at that point it is put into a plastic bag and then put into a coin envelope where it is labeled with the corresponding photo ID number. Question: now, is it also your job, sir, to package all of the evidence you collect and label it with what is known as a DR number? Yes, it is. And did you do so in this case? Yes, I did. Now I'm directing your attention to items number 1 through 8. Did you prepare a report documenting what items numbers 1 through 8 are in this case? Answer: yes, I did. Did you collect them, sir? Answer: I did, along with my assistant criminalist, Ms. Mazzola. Question: and now that, up to that point, do you recall Mr. Goldberg reading you that on redirect examination?
Yes,
All right, let's read the rest. Question: is that another criminalist with the Los Angeles Police Department? Answer: yes. Question: do you usually send 2 criminalists to a crime scene? Answer: not always, no. Question: what was this criminalist doing with you on that particular day? Answer: she was there to learn how to process crime scenes. Question: you were showing her how it is done? Answer: yes.
So not only did we hear this testimony when it first happened, he's read it, what, 3 different times now, I think?
You asked those questions. Did you give those answers?
yes,
And when you said that she was just there for you to show her how it is done, were you trying to convey at the preliminary hearing on national television that you did most of the work and she was just there observing?
This was gone into on cross. And I didn't ask about this for the redirect. So it's-
Overruled.
that was not my intention when I answered those questions.
That
All right, council, we're beyond their time now.
He just said asked and answered. If you just said objection, asked and answered over and over and over again, the judge would say sustained.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as far as the jury and presentation of evidence in court today, we're going to stand in recess. However, as I indicated to you, I'm going to be talking to some of you this afternoon, one at a time. So as far as the presentation of evidence is concerned,
It was either I think she did 4 crime scenes before she got to OJ.
we will stand in recess. Mr. Fung, you may step down. You're ordered to return tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. All right. And we'll take a 10-minute recess to recycle. I want to see counsel over at sidebar with the court reporter, please. Well, Mr. Blazer, people and Mr. Cochran, people represented by Mr. Darden and Mr. Goldberg. The jury is not present. Counsel, late yesterday afternoon, I received a package of test materials from the LAPD SID lab, some new lab notes or whatever. that I've copied, and Mr. Goldberg, Mr. Scheck, if you'll approach, I'll give you each a copy of these. One for you, and one for you. Good morning. All right, council, anything else we need to discuss before we invite the jurors to join us?
One brief application, Your Honor, that I filed a letter with the court yesterday and counsel about the production of handwritten notes of witness statements. And I was informed by Mr. Darden and had an opportunity briefly to speak with Mr. Douglas. And I was told that there had been an agreement that, as a general matter, handwritten notes from either side of witnesses were not required to be produced. But how, as I indicate in my letter, however, I have one particular concern that I think goes beyond just the general agreement, and that is I'm concerned that with respect to the communications between Ms. Clark and Mr. Fung with respect to this visit to the Bronco on July 6th, because I think the state of the testimony is that he's testified that she sent him to look for red stains on the Bronco on July
The
6th.
question is, are there any notes in
Yes,
existence regarding
and
that?
and if there and some representation with respect to when it was that he reported to her, if that happened, and
I thought we covered this already.
I'm talking about from the prosecution. In other words, I know what the witnesses said, and the witness's testimony I think is contradicted, and there's a contradictory statement to the investigator from the LA Police Commission. All that I'm saying is that I think that there is an obligation to correct the testimony or to reveal impeaching testimony, and I don't want to be in a position where they've looked at their notes or they thought about what it is and they've made some decision that they really don't have to reveal it. I think that this is a sufficiently troubling area that we ought to have something stated on the record so we know what the prosecution's position is.
Mr. Darden?
We are well aware of our responsibilities under Brady with regard to impeachment material. And as for the agreement between Ms. Clark and Mr. Cochran and Mr. Shapiro regarding attorney's notes, there have been many occasions during the trial when we would have liked to have had defense counsel's notes. We have lived up to our obligations under that agreement, and this is an issue I thought that we were going to discuss this afternoon with Mr. Cochran.
That's not a defense.
That
Well,
is an
they
issue
didn't do
regarding
it.
our prior agreement that attorney's notes will not be discoverable in this case.
All right, well, my inquiry is simply this, counsel. Are there any notes or reports regarding the visit to the Bronco by Mr. Fung at the request of Ms. Clark during the preliminary hearing, roughly July 6th or 7th-ish? That's the only question that I have. at this
I'm
point.
not aware of any notes, but still, we do have an agreement here. I expect defense
Well, I
counsel.
understand that. No, my only, I'm not asking for district attorney notes regarding interviews with witnesses or anything of that nature at this point. I'm just asking, are there any reports generated by Mr. Fung or any written materials regarding that?
Analyzed evidence report, which has already been introduced. We know of no others, but we
All right.
will check.
I'll accept that representation.
Your Honor, my application is putting aside notes. And I realize Ms. Clark isn't here, so maybe we should just, move on and we could take it up at a break, although I would like to finish with this witness, and I know the court does.
No,
my-
we are going to finish today.
I know.
All
Hopefully,
right, well, then let's proceed. When Ms. Clark arrives at the first morning break, we'll inquire of her. And we'll do it that way. All right, let's have the jurors, please. Hold on.
The court probably doesn't want to take this up right now, but counsel has been asking me about the order of witnesses, and I've been trying to tell them. They seem to ask me almost every day. But one of the hitches is we have the issue as to the scope of Mr. Yamaguchi's testimony, and we've tried to resolve it informally and not been able to. And we could significantly change our strategy in terms of how we're going to put on the scientific portion of the case, depending on the resolution of that issue. I brought it up earlier, but at some point that should be resolved.
All right, so who's next?
Well, next is going to be criminals in Zola, so I know that. And following them will probably be tow truck driver Mr. Wilson. But at that point, that is the point at which we would reach Mr. Yamaguchi, and from that point forward, I can't say until that issue is resolved.
Well, I see us not getting to those issues for perhaps the rest of the week. All right. All right, let's have the jury, please. The witness stand. Mr. Dennis Fung is on the witness stand undergoing recross-examination by Mr. Scheck. Good morning, Mr. Fung.
Good morning.
You're reminded you're still under oath, sir. And Mr. Scheck, you may conclude your recross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Morning, Mr. Fung. How are you, sir?
Good morning.
Mr. Fung, let's turn to the question of the socks that Mr. Goldberg asked you about on redirect examination. Now, is one of the habits you have when you testify to use a selective memory?
No,
Do you have a habit of being vague when you think it's going to help the prosecution's case?
no,
Do you have a habit of being specific when you think it's going to help the prosecution's case?
I answered the questions to the best of my ability.
Now, you testified yesterday, you were asked, did you do any close visual examination of the socks when you picked them up? And you answered, no, not a close one. Recall that.
Yes,
Now, you have a specific recollection that you did not look very carefully at those socks.
I did not look at those socks for blood because they were dark. And I mean, a specific
Miss-
laboratory type analysis was not done at that scene for the presence of blood.
My question to you is a simple one, sir. Do you have in your mind a specific recollection that you did not perform a careful visual examination of those socks?
Yes,
Now, you went there looking for, on Rockingham on the afternoon of June 13th, you were looking for bloody clothes.
yes,
And the socks, you say, were out of place.
yes, they were.
And you were concerned, were you not, that they might have been socks worn by the assailant. That was the prosecution's theory.
That was a possible.
Overruled.
That was a possibility.
And do you think, sir, that it would be very helpful to the prosecution's position for you to remember a careful visual examination of the socks?
Speculation sustained.
Now, you were asked some questions on redirect examination about the timing of your collection of the sock.
Yes,
And you were asked by Mr. Goldberg, question. Now, when you were at the Rockingham location, you saw a pair of socks in the master bedroom. Answer, yes. Question. And can you tell us whether you collected those between the collection of item 12 and item 14 by looking at your crime scene identification checklist? Excuse me. Answer. It was collected within that time frame. I don't know if it was collected in between those two times, though. Question. What are the two time frames? What is the time frame for 12? Answer. The time frame is 4:30. Question. And that was the stain in the foyer? Answer. Yes. Question. And what time is it? What is the time for 14? Answer. The time for 14 is 4:40. Question. And that was the stain in the master bathroom? Answer. Yes. And then a little later, Mr. Goldberg came back to this and he asked you question. Now, I just want to make sure I understand your testimony. Do you know whether you collected 13, that's the socks, right?
yes,
In between 12 and 14? Answer. I know it was in that time frame, but I don't specifically recall, nor can I tell from my notes if it were. Question, for sure. Answer, for sure. Question, but it was in that general time frame. Answer, yes. Remember being asked those questions and giving those answers.
yes,
Now, that was different, was it not, than your testimony on direct and cross-examination?
Sustained.
On direct examination,
Page, line. Maybe Mr. Blazer can do a word search.
That's exactly what we do. It's these computers, you print them out and sometimes you don't get the exact page.
Is there something else we can move on to, Mr. Blazer?
I think actually 21575. Line 9.
Lock him up. Lock him up. If the sock fits.
Mr. Goldberg.
Line 18 through.
I think 24. Question by Mr. Goldberg. All right, now after collecting item number 12, did you go upstairs in the location? Answer, yes, I did. Question, do you recall what was the next item of evidence you collected? Answer, the next item was a pair of socks in the master bedroom. We asked those questions. Did you give those answers on direct?
Yes.
Now, on cross-examination, 22302.
Mr. Check, which line? Which line?
Starting at 22302 at line 4. May I proceed?
Line 4 through line 26.
Mhm.
Proceed.
Question. And then the next item was a red stain from the foyer area inside Rockingham, correct? Answer, yes. Question, and that one was collected at 4:30. Answer, yes. And or thereabouts. Question, or thereabouts. And the next item you collected were the socks. Answer, yes. But there's no time indicated for that. Answer, that's correct. And the next item after that you indicated was a red stain that was found in the master bathroom. Answer, yes. And that time is at 4:40. Answer, yes. So I believe it was your testimony on direct examination that you collected the socks sometime between 4:30 and 4:40. Answer, about then, yes. Were you asked those questions and did you give those answers?
Yes.
Hi, Carla.
Now, Mr. Fung, hasn't it come to your attention that there is a video that was taken on the afternoon of June 13th of the interior of
I will fight everybody in this room, every single one of you, over this answer. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. I will fight dirty. I will cheat. I will eye gouge. I will bite. I will. It's Captain Crunch. It just is.
Rockingham by a photographer from SID?
Yes.
Vegas time.
Oh.
Have you
Hell yes.
been informed that on that video, there is a
Absolutely.
shot of the master bedroom?
Yes.
Have you been informed that on the camera, there is a time of when the video is being shot?
I believe there was a time present.
So you've seen that tape.
Yes.
Your Honor, I would ask that we be permitted to show a segment from that tape. I'd like to show a segment from that tape, and I'll show it to
What's the evidence number on this? For what purpose? It's a defense exhibit already marked 1068.
Yes, I realize that, but council did not give us advance notice that they wanted to do this. And there is, I'm not objecting necessarily to the tape, but there is one portion of it in terms of the.
I'll show 'em.
I'd like to discuss that.
As to the accuracy of the time,
Right. I don't know if the time code is on this.
Mr. Scheck, does 1068 have the time code on it?
Okay, that we need to.
All right, with the record report, please. One attorney from each side. Thank you, Counsel. Proceed.
Mr. Fung, you told us that you've seen the tape.
Yes, or portions of it.
And in this tape, you recall seeing that there is a panning shot of the bedroom area and the bed.
It's vague as to what Cannon shot means and what it is specifically.
Overruled. Do you understand the question?
Yes.
And at the point, the camera passes over the carpet area and the bed and cuts just at the moment that one would have seen an item in the position of the socks as they were photographed on June 13th.
Is that a question?
Is that what you saw on the tape?
There was a panning shot, but I don't believe from the angle that the shot was taken that the socks would have been visible.
When you saw that tape, did you see that at the point that the socks should have appeared, the tape cuts?
Well, it's still vague.
Ask me what he saw, goes to
Overruled.
his state of mind.
Well, I remember looking for the socks in the videotape and they weren't there
And
in the video.
in your, now you prepared for this redirect examination over the weekend.
I came in over the weekend, yes.
How many days?
Let's see, Saturday, and then I viewed a videotape on Sunday.
What about Friday afternoon?
That's not the weekend.
I understand, that's why I asked the question.
No, not on Friday afternoon.
And was it over the weekend that you saw this videotape?
Well, today is supposed to be.
The videotape of the interior of Rockingham?
I did not view the videotape of Rockingham that day.
When did you view the videotape of Rockingham?
It was the day after, to the best of my recollection, it was the day after the hearing for the videotape with the photographers and the detectives were.
So you were aware,
I don't recall myself when the date was. All right, Mrs. Robertson will give that to us shortly.
have you spoken to any of the people at SID who testified at that hearing about the videotape?
In what regard?
Well, have you spoken to Mr. Atkins
I have spoken to Mr. Atkins,
about the videotape?
just that he was going to have to testify because it was taken.
And was there discussion between the two of you about a time on the videotape that would indicate when that videotape was taken of objects in Mr. Simpson's master bedroom?
Overruled. Was there a discussion of that, yes or no?
No,
And what about with a gentleman named Ford?
yes,
And do you know if he testified at the hearing?
I believe he did.
And did you have a discussion with him about the time on the videotape where it depicts items in Mr. Simpson's master bedroom?
No.
In your preparations for redirect examination with the prosecutors, did you have a discussion with them about the times on the videotape which shows items in Mr. Simpson's master bedroom?
I believe the subject came up.
And when the subject came up, did they press you to change your testimony that the collection of the socks happened between 4:30 and 4:40?
No,
Did they press you to say that your collection of the socks was not necessarily after item number 12 and before item number 14?
no,
In other words, your testimony on redirect examination that you're no longer sure if the socks were collected between 4:30 and 4:40 was just something that you decided to say on redirect examination without any consideration of the time on that videotape.
my testimony then was, and still is to the best of my memory.
Is that your answer?
Yes, it is.
Well, isn't there a difference between the way you testified about the time in which the socks were collected and the order in which the socks were collected on redirect examination versus your direct examination and cross-examination?
Sustained.
Well, you had read to you questions and answers of what you said on direct,
Yes,
and you had questions and answers of what you said on cross-examination about this.
during some portion, yes.
I just did that with you now, right?
Yes,
And then on your redirect examination, do you not concede, sir, that your testimony changed?
Overruled.
I answered the question with different words. Yes,
Well, the different words that you used were a change in when the time, withdrawn. The words that you used constituted a change in the time that you could have collected the socks.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
When you answered on redirect, you were now saying that you did not know if the socks were collected in between 4:30 and 4:40, right?
Sustained.
Were you asked, question, and can you tell us whether those between the collection of item 12 and item 14, by looking at your crime scene checklist, answer, it was collected within that time frame. I don't know if it was collected in between those two times, though. Question, what are the two time frames? What is the time frame for 12? Answer, the time frame is 4:30. Question, and that was the stain in the foyer. Answer, yes. Question, and what is the time for 14? Answer, the time for 14 is 4:40. And that was the stain in the master bedroom, yes. Question, now I just want to make sure I understood your testimony. Do you know whether you collected 13 in between 12 and 14? Answer, I know it was in that time frame, but I do not specifically recall, nor can I tell from my notes if they were. Question, for sure. Answer, for sure. We asked those questions. Did you give those answers?
Overruled. You can answer the question.
I was asked those questions.
Now, you don't think that that's different than your direct testimony?
Sustained.
Mr. Fung, is this a habit you have of suddenly becoming vague if you think it's going to help the prosecution's position?
Sustained.
Now, you were asked some questions on redirect examination about the videos of Bundy and a three-dimensional brown object on the blanket. You recall that?
I don't recall it being a three-dimensional, saying it was three-dimensional. There was a dark object on the walkway area.
And now, you spent a lot of time going over those videotapes with the prosecutors, haven't you?
I spent some time looking at the videotapes and going over still photographs.
How much time?
About a half hour, an hour, maybe.
That's all?
That's all.
From the time you first saw those videotapes to the time you came in here and testified about it on redirect examination, you only reviewed those for a half hour?
He said half hour to an hour is what he said.
Half hour to an hour.
Oh,
You can answer.
Yes.
Now, I think you testified on redirect examination that when you looked at the video and the stills, you were going through a process of reconstruction.
Yes.
And you had no independent memory. Withdrawn. And part of that, and in your reconstruction of the stills and the videotape, you had a very specific recollection of putting down a card near a pole at a certain point in time.
Well, it's vague and unintelligible. It's pretty soon.
overruled.
They're stuck with the tape or it's-
Overruled.
I had a recollection of putting a card down by the pole.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a recollection. That's something that I saw happen in the videotape.
So in other words, you had no independent memory of exactly what you did in putting down the cards. You just looked at the videotape and looked at still photographs and sort of made up what you think happened.
Sustained.
You looked at the still photographs and you looked at the videotape and you tried to reconstruct what you think happened.
I looked at the videotape. I looked at still photos, and with what I remember from the crime scene, I came up with a reconstruction.
Well, your memory of the crime scene, did it include exactly what cards you put down next to the objects and in what order you did them?
Sustained.
Did you have an independent recollection of which cards you put down at what time?
It's still vague as the place.
Sustained.
As to any of the cards that you put down
At Bundy.
at Bundy with respect to the glove, the hat, and the envelope, did you have a specific recollection of what you did and when you did it?
I don't have specific recollection as to what exact time it is, but I do know what order I did things in.
Well, when you put the cards down, do you have an independent recollection as to whether or not you put a card down in one location and then, before the photographer took the picture, decided to move it to a somewhat different place?
Seems that's not evidence.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
At any time when you were putting down the cards near the hat, the glove, and the envelope, do you have a specific recollection about putting down a card and just leaving it in the first place you put it?
No.
Could you have put down a card and then decided to move it a little bit?
That's a possibility.
And isn't it true, sir, that the reconstruction that you went through of the still photographs and the videotape are based on the assumption that you put certain cards down, left them in positions, and didn't change them, and you did it in a certain order?
My reconstruction is based on that, plus the fact that I would not move the evidence until a photograph had been taken.
Have a specific recollection withdrawn. Could it have been, sir, that when you were putting down a card by the hat, that you put it down at one place at first and then moved it to another?
Your Honor, that calls for second.
Sustained. Which phrase?
Well, based on your recollection of the crime scene, is that something that you could have done?
It still calls for second.
Sustained.
two photographs that I'd like to have marked as defendants next in order. One would be then, one 1108, and the next one 1109. And I'd like to put 1108 on the envelope.
All right. What's the basis, legal basis?
Legal basis is not impeaching, therefore not relevant.
Overruled.
Mr. Fung, I'd like to direct your attention to the envelope. See that?
Yes.
You see where the card is behind the envelope?
Yes, I do.
And that's an envelope, that would be number 104, which would be the photo ID of the envelope. Why don't you check?
And the record reflect that he's checking what appears to be his funds to identification checklist.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you checking a page that indicates the time in which these objects were collected?
No.
Because you didn't write down in your evidence item collection sheet the time that these items were collected.
The times were not written down at Bundy.
So when you went through this reconstruction with the still photographs and the videotapes, you didn't even have the times that the items were collected.
Sustained.
Now, that shows you the next item.
I got good news,
All right,
guys.
1109.
So if we finish out this video today, this is part 1 of April 18th. We only have 2 hours left of April 18th. That means tomorrow, if I wake up, tomorrow we will finish with Fung. We might finish with him today. I don't know. It's hard to tell who's on tomorrow's, but I suspect that it is Fung. And I also suspect that, so there's Goldberg standing up, Marsha whispering in his ear. There's Goldberg. I suspect that we have Sheck for a while now, though it doesn't show him. Yeah, oh gosh. May 8th, there he is. I suspect we're gonna have him for a while bit. Do the science part.
You recognize that to be a picture of the envelope again?
Yes.
And that's card 104?
Yes.
And that's in a different position in that photograph.
But the envelope is in the same position.
The envelope is, the card is in a different position.
Sustained.
It's not in,
Is the card in a different position?
Overruled.
yes, the card is in a different position, but that's not uncommon for the card to be moved in a different position for photographic purposes.
Right. It's not uncommon at all to be moving these cards around during the process of still photography.
That's correct.
But your entire reconstruction without independent recollection based on the videotape and the still photographs is based on a very specific judgment about which cards were placed down in what order.
Overruled.
My reconstruction was based on those factors plus my practice of not moving evidence
So,
until photographs are taken.
so the basic assumption here is that you don't move evidence before it's photographed.
That is my general practice.
Well, that's what you did here.
That's what I did here.
And it would be your general practice to report if someone moved evidence from the position in which it was originally found to a different position.
Overruled. This is something we've already
I'm
gone
moving
into.
into it right now. You were asked questions on redirect examination about why you thought the scene might have been altered.
I don't specifically recall that line of questioning.
Do you recall questions on redirect examination about your responsibility to find out who might have altered the crime scene?
In redirect,
Yes.
Overruled.
We asked these questions, and did you give these answers on redirect examination?
Sustained.
Well, Your Honor, we don't have page citations.
You need to give page citations. If you can't give page citations, you can't do it.
Well, we don't have. All right, we have a page number from yesterday's transcript. We have live notes. I have the questions and answers.
Check the court order. Do you have something else you can move on to?
No.
How much more do you have?
Thinking how.
Let me check and see on the availability of our daily transcript. Yes. That's true. We have a photocopy repair person since 8:30 this morning working on our machine.
Your Honor, if it would be,
Do we have a master copy that's available? All right, Ms. Olson, would you check on that, please? Apparently Ms. Moxham stepped away. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you want to stand and stretch for a moment, I'm going to have the court reporter get the transcript from yesterday.
Sanctions. I want huge sanctions for him. I want humongous sanctions.
but without the transfer page number, we can't, quite a bit.
All right, let's do this. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 15-minute recess at this point. Please remember all my admonitions. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions. Don't conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. Do not allow me to communicate with you with regard to the case. We'll stand in recess for 15 minutes. All right, thank you.
Asking me for page numbers.
My mistake. All right, let's have the jurors, please. Well, let's tell me what it is. Read it for me. Hold on to the jury. Read it for me. Read it for me.
All right, I have, Your Honor,
You're making the objection, counsel. Read it for me.
Did you know whether the crime scene had been altered before you arrived? Answer. I assumed it had because the body of Nicole Brown Simpson was on the plastic when I walked up to the scene. Answer. Okay. And you assume that when she was murdered, it wasn't on that coroner's plastic bag? Answer. Yes. Question. Now, was it your job as a criminalist to start interviewing witnesses for the purposes of determining what the crime scene was like when they arrived? Answer. No. Question. Whose job is that?
The detectives.
Answer. That is the investigating officer's job, the detectives.
Mr. Goldberg anticipates me. I think the correct form for recross-examination is I must direct the witness's attention to the questions he was asked on redirect in order to set up impeachment with prior testimony, which is exactly what I'm going to do with this first set of questions. And in fact, I think the witness was actually a little vague on the issue of altered, but that's all I'm doing with these questions. I think it's my responsibility
This
to
is your
direct.
foundation to set up an impeachment?
Yes.
All right, what's the second passage?
Your Honor, can Mr. Fund step out then if I'm going to do all this?
No, are you making a good faith offer that you've got it there?
Yes, I've got an impeachment from prior
All
testimony.
right, let's
I think
proceed. Let's have the jury,
proceed.
please.
That's that if there are two separate passages that are inconsistent, it's not relevant. That can be argued to the jury, but there's no need to ask the witness about it.
Overruled.
I had asked you if you recall testifying on redirect examination about realizing the crime scene had been altered before you arrived. And Mr. Goldberg, page 23066, starting at line 11. On redirect examination, where you asked, question, did you know whether the crime scene had been altered before you arrived? Answer, I assumed it has because the body was, Nicole Brown Simpson was on the plastic when I walked up to the scene. Question, okay, and you assumed that when she was murdered, she wasn't on the coroner's plastic bag? Answer, yes. You recall that?
Yes.
Now, when you got to the crime scene and you saw Mr. Goldman's body removed, didn't you think that might have altered the crime scene?
That is changing the crime scene, yes.
Well, Mr. Goldman's body was removed from the caged-in dirt area and dragged across the location where the envelope, glove, and hat was.
Sustained.
Were you concerned that when Mr. Goldman's body was removed, it could have been dragged across the area where the glove, the hat, and the envelope were found?
Overruled.
I was not in the immediate area when Mr. Goldman's body was moved.
Well, when you say immediate, you were standing in the bushes near the walkway area, weren't you?
I don't believe so.
Well, do you recall a videotape of you stepping over the body holding what you've told us was the Rockingham glove with your bare hand in a bag?
Yes.
Well, are you telling us that you were not in the area when Mr. Goldman's body was removed from the caged-in area and put in front of the steps on the walkway?
That was after he had been moved.
Well, you knew his body was in the dirt caged-in area.
Overruled.
Yes.
And you knew that it had been removed to the front of the steps.
Yes.
And did that cause you any concern that the removal of his body from the caged-in area to the front of the steps might have caused the glove, the hat, and the envelope to have been moved?
Overruled. You can answer the question.
It did not occur to me at that time.
Did you ever bother to ask anyone about it?
Overruled.
Did I ask anybody about it? I don't recall asking anybody about it.
Did you ever compare your measurements of where various objects were with the measurements taken by Detective Lang?
Overruled.
I have never compared my measurements with Detective Lang's measurements.
Now, you have testified, after looking at the videotapes and the still photography and reconstruction, that the Bundy glove was ever in a third position on the blanket.
Could you repeat that?
Sure. Do you remember during cross-examination, we talked about position 1, position 2, and position 3?
Yes.
All right. And position 3 was that object on the videotape, which you're saying is not the glove, right?
Yes.
All right. If that were the glove, that would be a third position.
Sustained.
You do concede, however, from looking at still photographs, that the glove had been moved from a position where it was originally photographed when Detective Furman was pointing at it to a second position when you directed the photographer to photograph it.
Overruled.
Yes.
Okay. So you concede there are at least 2 positions for the glove.
Overruled.
There are 2 positions that I know of.
And there are 2 positions for the envelope.
Yes.
Now, you learned about this 2 months ago when you were listening to the radio and heard in the crime scene laboratory and heard testimony.
Sustained. Great question.
When was the first time you learned that the envelope had been moved?
I don't specifically recall knowing that the envelope had been moved. I know that there was testimony that evidence that the Bundy crime scene had been moved prior to my arrival.
Well,
or prior to my collection process.
I'm now on April 11th at page 22123,
Same.
starting at line 20. Starting at line 20. Question. When,
Yes. Proceed.
question. When did you first learn that the envelope had been moved from its original condition as it was found at the crime scene? Answer, the first I heard about it was during the trial. Question, when? Answer, this trial. Question, when during the trial? We have been here for a while. Answer, when, you're right, when Detective Lang was giving testimony. Question, about a month ago, 2 months ago. Answer, whenever he was giving testimony. Question, and isn't it your responsibility? Well, how did you learn about that? Did you speak to Detective Lang? Answer, how did I learn of it? Question, yeah, that the envelope had been moved. Answer, I overheard it on the radio. We asked those questions. Did you give those answers?
Yes.
Now, you're under instructions to avoid, if you possibly can, listening to any testimony.
Sustain.
Do you regard yourself as under any restriction in terms of listening to or watching any testimony of the trial?
Sustain.
Have you listened to testimony of the trial?
Listen to some portions.
Have you watched any of the testimony of the trial of prior witnesses?
Yes, I have.
How much? Which witnesses?
Oh,
I've seen portions of Detective Lang's testimony, Detective Van Adder's testimony, Detective Furman's, some of Mr. Kalin's,
And you paid careful attention when, are you finished?
and just various other witnesses.
Mhm.
I've seen parts of all of them.
Have you paid careful attention when Detective Lang and Van Adder and Furman testified about anything that might involve your activities?
I never never get a chance to sit down and concentrate on it, but if I hear my name, it piques my attention.
And when you were observing their testimony, did you get a pretty good idea of what attacks were being made on their credibility by the defense?
sustain.
Did you form any ideas in your mind as to what attacks were being made on the credibility of Detective Lang, Detective Van Adder, or Detective Furman by the defense?
Sustain.
Did you form any opinion in your mind as to what kinds of attacks were being made on the credibility of Detective Furman?
Overruled.
It seemed to me that his overall credibility was being questioned.
Did you pay attention to any specific areas of testimony?
All right, this is becoming irrelevant.
Now, returning now to the glove in position 1 and position 2. So you recall learning for the first time about position 1 and position 2 during Detective Lang's testimony.
Overruled.
Yes.
Now, on redirect examination, Mr. Goldberg asked you about your obligations to interview witnesses at the scene to find out what it was like before you arrived. Call that?
Yes.
Counsel, page 23066, again at line 20. Question. Reading from before.
Which line, counsel?
23066, line 20. Question. Now, is it your job as a criminalist to start interviewing witnesses for the purposes of determining what the crime scene was like when they arrived? Answer, no. Question. Whose job is that? Answer. That is the investigating officer's job, the detectives. Were you asked that question? Did you give that answer yesterday on redirect?
Yes,
Now, isn't it true that you just gave that answer because the prosecution wanted you to say it, even though you knew it isn't, you know it's not true?
it isn't my job to interview witnesses.
Do you have a habit, sir, of when you testify, of going along with whatever suggestions the prosecution makes to you?
Sustained.
Page 22145. You recall answering questions?
Wait,
I understand. I'm just asking a prefatory question while he's getting the page.
proceed.
Do you recall answering questions on this very same issue with respect to your responsibility to investigate whether evidence has been moved or altered on cross-examination?
I can be fairly confident, even though I already know the outcome, so maybe I'm not confident, but fairly confident the jury no longer effing cares about this at all.
What line, counsel?
4. Line 4.
All right, with court reporter, please. All right, thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Mr. Fung, were you asked these questions and did you give these answers? Question. Now, Mr. Fung, isn't it your responsibility to investigate whether evidence at the crime scene has been moved or altered from its original position? Answer. In some respects, it is my responsibility, yes. Question. All right. And are you supposed to make inquiries of people at the scene as to whether or not evidence has been moved or altered? Answer. Yes. Were you asked those questions, and did you give that answer on cross-examination?
Yes, I did.
But when Mr. Goldberg asked you questions on redirect yesterday, you said that it is not your job to interview witnesses for purposes of determining what the crime scene was like when they arrived. You said that was the detective's job.
Overruled.
That's what I stated.
Well, Mr. Fung, is this a change in your testimony now, your position on redirect?
Mr. Goldberg asked about witnesses, which is different from the question that you asked.
Let me read again from line 12. Question. Are you supposed to make inquiries of people at the scene as to whether or not evidence has been moved or altered? Answer, yes. You make a distinction in your mind between witnesses and people?
Witnesses would not include the investigating officer, which would, or the detective, in my mind.
Would it include the representatives from the coroner's office?
I really haven't given it that much thought.
Would it include the people from SID Print Division?
I wouldn't consider them witnesses, no.
Would it include the photographers from SID?
I wouldn't consider them witnesses either.
Well, other than the detectives, the photographers from SID, the coroner's representative, and the print people, the representatives from the print unit at SID, was there anyone else at the scene who could have been a witness?
As phrased.
To your knowledge, was there any other person that could have been a witness other than the detectives, the representatives from SID, and the photographers?
Overruled.
There were a lot of people at the scene, but not in the scene, who could be considered witnesses.
Well, the people, the other people you're talking about were being kept away by that yellow crime scene tape.
And officers.
In terms of figuring out whether what the crime scene was like before you arrived, weren't the only people you could possibly interview as witnesses those officials who were allowed inside the yellow tape?
I don't consider detectives and people working in the police department as witnesses.
Mr. Fung, this distinction you're making between people and witnesses, isn't it just an effort by you to avoid admitting that on redirect examination, you said exactly the opposite of what you said on cross-examination?
Sustained. Sustained. Sustained.
Now, in terms of your responsibilities, relevant section from the crime scene checklist.
Is this the one with a question mark in the box?
Yes. The crime scene checklist, that's where you directed Ms. Mazzola to put a question mark.
I didn't direct her to put a question mark there, but one was put there.
I'm sure you didn't previously.
Here's why I agree with you and disagree with you. Just stay with me. So, as an outsider, back when this was going on, yeah, once we found out, she died, everybody knew he wasn't going to get convicted. Everybody knew it because he was so loved as, that football star. He was so loved. However, we are sitting through this trial every day, and the love of him as a football player has just gone completely because of this that we're going through right now. The same questions over and over and over again, and the jury only listening to this, for a year. And I think the shininess of him being a football star has would have gone away completely by the time, months ago, for these people. So yeah, so I agree with you. That's what I thought at the beginning when I was, younger and this was going on live. That's what I thought, but not now that I've seen the trial. It's too blah.
Testify that you directed her to put a question mark there because you realized when you got to the scene that you saw Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's body on plastic.
I may have.
Okay.
What exhibit is this, Mr. Harris?
Your Honor, this is what will, this is that group of documents, the number of which escapes me that,
All right, this is page,
but thank you, Ms. Goldberg.
I can't see the page number. on the
It's
top.
page 2.
All right, page 2.
Now, this box says, has the scene been altered? If so, by whom and how?
Yes.
And isn't it your job to find out if the scene had been altered, and if so, by whom and how?
Overruled.
In some respects, it is.
And you have known now, since you heard Detective Lang testify, that the glove and the envelope were in 2 different positions.
Overruled.
I know that some evidence had been moved.
Well, you know, you have agreed, have you not, that the glove and the envelope were in 2 different positions.
Yes.
To your knowledge, sir, since you have discovered this, have you conducted any investigation as to who might have put the glove and the envelope back into a second position?
I have not conducted an investigation. No.
To your knowledge, has anyone conducted such an investigation?
Overruled. Overruled.
Please repeat the question.
To your knowledge, has anyone conducted such an investigation?
Overruled. To your knowledge, do you know if anybody has? Yes or no?
No.
Proceed.
Would a failure to find that out constitute, in your mind, a cover-up?
Sustained.
You told us about your definition of covering up.
Yes.
As far as you're concerned, would a failure to learn who it was that moved the glove and the envelope constitute a cover-up?
Sustained.
Mr. Goldberg read you a section from the book by Dr. DeForest, Dr. Ganslin, and Dr. Lee, Forensic Science and Introduction to Criminalistics. You recall that?
Yes.
That was at the end of your testimony on redirect?
Yes.
All right, and direct your attention to page 415 onto 416. And you recall he read,
Certainly.
you recall he read you a passage concerning that it is probable no crime scene has ever been processed in such a way that hindsight would not allow someone else to criticize the work at a later date.
Yes.
He read that sentence to you. Let me read you the next few sentences and tell me if you agree with them. However, investigators must learn from their mistakes and must strive for continuous improvement. No attempt should be made to cover up these mistakes or offer excuses for them. Responsibility for mistakes should be faced squarely. You agree with that?
Yes.
Have you done that in this case?
No.
Sustained. Answer stricken. It's vague. You want to re-ask the question?
Sure. Have you made an attempt to cover up mistakes or offer excuses for them?
No.
Have you met your responsibility to face mistakes squarely?
I believe I have.
And as far as you're concerned, if you had any knowledge whatsoever as to who moved the glove in the envelope, you would have no hesitation to come forward and tell us.
I would not, if I had knowledge of it, I would have no hesitation, no.
Now, let us turn, sir, to the videotapes that we saw in redirect examination of you and Ms. Mazzola entering and leaving the Rockingham location on the afternoon of June 13th. Now, prior to testifying at all at this trial, had you seen a video of yourself and Ms. Mazzola when you leave Rockingham and put the valise and the paper bags into the rear of the crime scene truck?
Prior to,
Beginning your testimony at this trial, did you see that segment?
I've seen it, yes.
And when you testified initially, you said that you carried the blood sample out in either a paper bag, a posse box, or by itself in your hand, but you thought that last possibility was unlikely.
Yes.
And part of that testimony, I take it, was based on reconstructing from the first videotape that you saw before you testified.
When I gave that testimony there,
Yeah.
I didn't take that into consideration. I was just naming possible modes of transporting that envelope from my memory.
Now, on April 14th, that's before we saw the KABC videotape, you were asked some questions on this issue by Mr. Goldberg on redirect examination. Recall that?
Yes.
All right, and I'm at 22898, line 14.
Mr. Furman, were your lips moving when you spoke on the stand? Case closed. Don't bring common sense into the OJ trial. Come on now. Come on. They were supposed to know the answer to every question before they started collecting evidence. And it should have already been numbered before they even found the evidence. It was supposed to be numbered.
Let me look in your transcript. Question. And at that point in time, did you have an independent recollection, meaning from your own memory, of what happened on the 13th as to exactly what receptacle, if any, you put the blood vial envelope in? Answer.
Thank you, Shaq. Thank you. Because we're only months and months and months and months and months into the OJ trial. And now you said from your own memory. Now we know what independent recollection means. Now we all know.
No, I did not. Question. Mr. Fung, now these are by Mr. Goldberg. Question. Mr. Fung, where did you come up with these different possibilities? Answer. Those were packaging items that are in the crime scene, available in the crime scene kit, and I named those types of packaging or packages. Question. Okay, but did you have any memory at that time of putting it in a brown paper bag as opposed to the posse box, as opposed to just handling it without putting it in anything? And
He did the Boston Strangler, right? Was it the Boston Strangler or was it somebody else? Oh, yeah. Which serial killer was Bailey a lawyer for? I feel like I'm wrong. I feel like it's not the Boston Strangler, but I don't know why I think it is. It's one of those big ones. It's not the Zodiac Killer. It's not the Night Stalker. It's Hillside Strangler. Would make more sense because it's in California, right? Maybe it wasn't the Boston Strangler. It's the Hillside Strangler. I don't know. But he did one big serial killer.
or no?
That's correct.
I'll
Now-
Google it.
When you're answering those questions, you were saying you were not sure of the container or receptacle. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh,
But you never doubted the fact that you were the one that carried it out.
No.
It was the Boston
They-
Strangler. Yep.
oh,
Now, you recall, withdrawn. Before you testified in front of the jury on cross-examination with respect to videotapes of you and Ms. Mazzola coming in and out of Rockingham, we showed you some tapes outside the presence of the jury.
Yes.
And I showed you a tape, two segments of Detective Van Adder getting out of his car, carrying a folder with something on the outside of that folder.
Yes.
And when I showed you these tapes, at some point I called your attention to the fact that between the trip where you went to the car and put the bags in the truck, all right, and the so-called plastic bag trip, Detective Van Adder's car was in the second set of footage, but not the first.
Yes.
And when you saw that, that's when you realized that the blood sample couldn't be in the paper bag, the posse box, or that you could have carried it out yourself.
oh, well. You can answer the question.
wasn't at that point that I realized it.
Well, it was when you were watching these videotapes that you realized it?
No, it was sometime in the morning when I woke up that that had occurred to me.
Well, the afternoon before you woke up, you had seen some videotapes of yourself and Miss Mazzola leaving.
Yes.
So
Nope. Nope. We gotta end it today, guys. I have to get to work. Woohoo! We gotta end this for today. We didn't make it to the end because there's 10 more minutes, and we don't have 10 more minutes. So thank you so much for coming to the OJ trial. I really appreciate it. I'll see you all again really, really, really soon. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye, guys.